You are welcome to this brief lecture on the classification of research methods and designs. We will start by looking at the outlines of what we are going to cover in this brief lecture. It is expected that at the end, students should be able to understand the concept of research methods, and research designs. The basis for research classification and the 8 types of research will equally be looked at. They should also be able to understand the schema for research methods and designs that we have in this lecture. Now, we will begin by what is research. This is a systematic investigation into a subject in order to discover facts, establish or revise a theory, or develop a plan of action based on the fact discovered. Research is an investigation, and the investigation must be systematic, that is well organized and logically carried out. When you carry out an investigation that is well organized and logically carried out to discover facts, which may be problem or solution, we call that type of research exploratory research. Research could also be conducted to establish or revise a theory, model, or framework, or describe the characteristics of some phenomenon. In that case, it is called descriptive research. Research could also be carried out to develop an action plan to solve a particular problem, to establish a cause-effect relationship, and that we refer to as explanatory research. Now, what is research design? What is research method? What are they? Research method is the specific procedure, process, or techniques used to identify, select, process, and analyze information about a topic. Research method determines how data is collected or generated and the overall validity and reliability of a research. Research design, on the other hand, is a general layout or arrangements of the activities in identifying, selecting, processing, and analyzing information about a topic. That is to say, research design provides specific direction or strategies for a research procedure or method. Now, what is the difference? The difference is that research design is the general layout or the arrangement of the activities in a particular procedure, in a particular method used in research. So the closest activities and the arrangement of those activities is what we call research design. And what guides the arrangement or the layout of those activities that are used in determining or in carrying out that research is what we call the research method. The activities in the procedure, the activities in the method is what we call research design. So in other words, research method is broader than research design. Research design is the closest activity. Generally, research is classified based on different facts or factors. Now, let's look at this classification. Now, research can be classified based on several factors, as we have mentioned. The basis for the research classification could be on one, purpose. So we can classify research based on purpose, and we are going to see them one by one. We could also, that is the aim of doing that research. We could also classify research based on inference. How is ideas generated? How is conclusion drawn? We can also classify research based on that. We could also, number 3 is the research experiment. We could also classify research based on how the variables are controlled, whether they are controlled or not controlled. The extent of the control of the variables or the subjects that are being studied could also be basis for classification. 4 could also be on time. The time at which you are carrying it out. Is it at the same time or is it across certain time? So we also classify research based on the location. Where are you carrying out the research? Is it in the field or inside, outdoor or indoor? Research could also be classified based on data. In most cases, this is what we normally refer to. Whenever we say types of research, we quickly rush to the data. And that is where we have either the nature of the data or the method of collection of that data. So research could be classified based on the nature of the data collected or based on the method used in collecting the data. 7 is research sampling. Research could also be classified based on the sampling, on how the samples are obtained and used in the study. Research could also be classified based on the scale, the extent of the research. Is the research fixed or is the research flexible? That is, these are the bases for classification of research. So now the first one, which is on the papers, is types of research papers. Based on the papers of research, research can be classified into exploration, as the name implies, to explore, to investigate, to find out those new problems, new challenges. That is, this type of research tries to provide answers and conclusions to a perceived problem. It carefully examines a situation in order to find something new. Now, the next one is descriptive. The descriptive, in this case, tries to expand knowledge or just to describe or explain the features of a particular phenomenon, the characteristics of a particular variable. Explanatory research tries to establish the cause and effect relationship that allows generalization to be extended to similar realities. So now the correlational study tries to establish the relationship between two or more variables. In this case, it will tell the magnitude of their relationship. If one is increasing, is the other one decreasing or static? It tells also the direction of their relationship. Is it positive or negative or zero? Non-linear. Then the next one is pure or basic research, otherwise called theoretical research. The theoretical research tries to give information. It's a research conducted to generalize, to obtain information or ideas without actually making any reference to the practical application. That is pure research. Then we talk of the applied research. The applied research is based on the application of sciences and technologies to solve a particular problem. When it is this applied research, it could be divided into two: the scientific applied research and then the technology applied research. When you are talking of the scientific, you are making investigations to learn or understand the characteristics of certain variables and be able to predict what can happen in future. Why the technological application is the application of the sciences, the processes to improve, is geared towards improvement of a process in a particular phenomenon to get a better result. Now, we go over to two types of research inference. As we have said, this is based on how conclusions or opinions are drawn or generated. They are divided into three. We have the inductive, we have the deductive and hypothetical deductive. In the inductive research, knowledge is generated from an observation to achieve a generalization. From an observation, knowledge is generated. But in terms of deductive, knowledge or realities is explained by general laws that point towards certain conclusion. In the deductive is observation that you gain from the experience, you generalize, you draw information, you draw knowledge. But on the deductive research, you draw knowledge from existing laws, from general laws that is in existence. You now draw knowledge there to make inference or solve a particular problem. The hypothetical deduction is based on observing reality to make a hypothesis, to observe real things and make hypotheses about it. Then you draw conclusion, you make use of deduction to obtain a conclusion, and finally verify or reject whatever hypothesis you have made. Now we go over to types of research experiment. Types of research experiment. In this case, we have the experimental research, we have the non-experimental research, and we have the quasi-experimental research. In the experimental research, It is designing or replicating a phenomenon whose variables are manipulated under strict control conditions. In the experiment, the variables are manipulated under controlled conditions. And in that case, we have designs now that are used. We have randomized block design, complete randomized block design, and we have the factorial design. In subsequent lecture, we can deal with these ones, but today we are trying to actually clarify that there is a demarcation between designs and method. And it is from this design that you get to it is from the method that you get to the design. The second type of this research experiment is non-experimental. In this non-experimental, it is where observations are made on subjects the way they are, without any manipulation of any condition. Without manipulation of any condition. They are observed in their natural state. Then we have the quasi-experimental. In this quasi-experimental research, certain part of the variables, certain characteristics of the variables are controlled, but not confined in a controlled condition. So certain variables, certain characteristics are controlled and then manipulated, but not controlled. It does not have total control of the variable and does not have total control of the environment, though there may be a randomized group. So that's why we say quasi is semi-experimental. It is not purely experimental. It's partially experimental. And in that case, we have some designs. We have pre-test only design, post-test only design, post-test only design. That is, you do not give tests to, for instance, the students before manipulating the variables, before treatment. Just after the treatment, you collect data, and whatever you see there, the difference that exists will be attributed to the treatment. Then we have pre-test, post-test. In this case, you determine what the variables have before the treatment or before the manipulation. And after the treatment or the manipulation, you now determine what they now have. So in that case, it's pre-test, post-test design. Then we have the Solomon 4 design. This is a combination of the post-test only design and pre-test, post-test only design. In this case, you have 4 groups. 2 of the groups, you will not administer pre-test to them. You just go ahead to administer the treatment, to manipulate the variables. After which you collate that one of the group will be controlled, one will be experimental, but there will not be any pre-test. And after which you collect your post-test result. Then the other 2 groups remaining, you administer pre-test on them, then manipulate or treat the subjects. After the treatment, you now collect the post-test result. This group also, one will be controlled, one will be experiment. So you have Solomon 4 design. You combine them and get the 2 groups. In each of them, they will have 2 groups. Let's say experimental group, we have one that you did not administer pre-test, but post-test only, and then have one that you administer pre-test and post-test. Then the other group, which is maybe controlled, we have a group that you did not administer pre-test, you just treated and collected post-test result. Then you also have one group there that you administered your pre-test and manipulated or treated. After the treatment, you collected post-test results. So that is how that one is. I believe you get what I mean. Then we go over to types of research time. This is based on time that you classify research. We have cross-sectional research and we have longitudinal research. In terms of cross-sectional research, yes, this research design is a design here. This research is used to observe phenomenon, an individual or a group of research subjects at a given time. At a given time. Cross-sectional at a given time. Now I will explain how it is. You want to, when students are being taught, or one thing or the other, you have 3 different groups. Let's say during break period, you go and observe what they do. As you are observing them in this school, then there's an observation going on in another school, and there's another observation going on in another school at the same time. That is called cross-sectional. But longitudinal, otherwise called diachronic research, in that case, the events are monitored. The same event, the same individual, the same group of persons are monitored over a defined period of time. That could be 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years. That is called longitudinal study. Sometimes they refer to it as a case study, because a case study has one characteristic that is peculiar to it. Apart from other characteristics, it must be studied for a particular time, in-depth time. Now we go over to types of research location. Based on location, we have the documentary research, which most of us refer to as shelf research. These ones we carry out on our shelves in the library, in the departmental bookshops, shelves, and rest of them. In our own bookshelf, that is called documentary research. They're already there, we go and pick them up. We have another one called field research. This one is a type of research that goes on in the field, that things are observed naturally the way they are. Just like someone going to the forest to observe the way snakes or birds behave. That is field study, the way they are. It could be in the farm, how farmers behave during rainy season. That is field. There is no manipulation of variables here. They are observed naturally the way they are in their settings. Then we have the laboratory research. These are research that are carried out in the laboratory in a confinement, in a confined area where some conditions are controlled, in a controlled environment. So now we go over to types of research method. Types of research method based on data. This one is based on data. I want to tell you that anytime you hear types of research method, that thing is method of data collection. That is the full meaning. But we here, which is in most cases, they just tell you types of research method. Without completing it for you, know that it is types of research method of data collection. And that is why we have quantitative and qualitative. The 2 major types of research method are the quantitative and the qualitative. But here, we are still going to have some other classification based on data. And we have primary versus secondary data. It's also a type of research method under data collection. We also have descriptive and experimental. It is also under this research method of data collection. So taking the first one, quantitative. Quantitative is divided into five. We have the descriptive quantitative research. We have the correlational quantitative research, ex post facto quantitative research, causal comparative quantitative research, and experimental quantitative research. Here, under experimental, now the designs you see here is pre-experimental research design, through experimental research design, and quasi-experimental research design. Under pure experimental, quantitative. Then going to qualitative research, we have observational qualitative research, we have interview qualitative research, focus group qualitative research, surveys qualitative research, and secondary research qualitative. Under observational research, this observation can be longitudinal, it could be cross-sectional, it could be a case study, and it could be ecological. It is very important we know that these are under observational study, which is a type of qualitative research method. Now, when we go over to primary research method or secondary research method, is just on the source of the data. When a data is collected primarily, mainly for a particular research, the data obtained from first-hand source, from direct source of information, we call that, if it is specifically meant for that research, it is called primary data. But when data is collected for another purpose, maybe stored in the library, but relevant to our study, and we go over to make use of it, that is called secondary data. And it is also a type of research method under data collection classification. Then we have the descriptive, those ones that they are there to describe the characteristics, to explain the characteristics of the phenomenon. And we also have experimental, which tries to manipulate the variables to obtain different figures, different values or numbers or data from the study. Now, the seventh one is types of research sampling. We have the probability and the non-probability. How do we explain this? The probability is just on the chances. Those sampling that are made on the chances of selection. When it is on probability, it means the chances of selection is not known to the researcher. The researcher does not know who will be involved in the research, in the study. But non-probability, the researcher determines, he knows, you already have the information, pre-information of who might be involved in this study. The probability, that is based on the chances, are classified into 5, both of them. The first one is simple random sampling, stratified random, systematic sampling, cluster sampling, multi-stage sampling. Multi-stage is not a particular type of research sampling per se, but just tells us that in this study, different stages, at different stage of the data collection, there was one form of sampling or the other. It might be the same, but the samples are obtained at different stages. That is why it is called multi-stage sampling. Otherwise, in this multi-stage sampling, it is possible you involve simple random. At the other stage, you involve stratified. At the other stage, you can involve systematic. It's only trying to tell us that there are different sampling that took place at different stages. Non-probability, here we have convenience sampling, purposive, otherwise called judgmental sampling. We have quota sampling, we have snowball sampling, and we have voluntary sampling. For want of time, we may not be able to explain this now, but they are easy and very simple to understand. We only tell you that sometimes research can be classified based on the sampling, type of sampling used in that study. The last here is the type of research scale. Based on the scale, this type of research based on the scale is where we have the fixed and the flexible. Fixed and the flexible. There are research that are already fixed. Take for instance, when in terms of the you are conducting a research based on human being. Human beings are already fixed. You cannot have half human being. You only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is not completely the same with the nature of the data you collect. There are places that you cannot carry out this study. Apart from that particular place, you cannot carry it. It must be carried out that place. So it is fixed in terms of place. It is also fixed in terms of data. Then when you come to flexible, it is flexible in terms of place. It is also flexible in terms of data. Like temperature can be flexible. You can get 36.1, 36.2, but 36.3. So it is flexible. It is not fixed. So we can also classify research as fixed research or flexible research. With that, we take you to the last, where we have the schema trying to capture all we have described. Then here we have the type, the research classification. The first one we did where we had 8. We had types of research based on the papers. You have types of research based on the inference, the conclusion, or the idea generated. We have based on the experiment. We had based on time. We had based on location. We had now based on the method of data. And we had based on the sampling. And finally, we had based on the scale. Thank you very much, and God bless you. We wish this will be useful for you to understand the types or classification of research anytime it is mentioned.